In the midst of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau being stuck at the G20 summit in India and being rightfully lambasted by the Indian media, sick of his enabling of the extreme anti India Khalistani movements in Canada, it's a big wonder to who even likes Justin Trudeau anymore. Obviously, on the international stage, I think a lot of our allies have gotten very sick of how pretentious Justin Trudeau is, constantly lecturing them on climate and social issues, and then undermining other allies like India. It seems like the only countries that still like Justin Trudeau are the ones that you really wouldn't want liking you. Places like China and Iran. Iran, a country that Justin Trudeau quite literally lets get away with murder. Anyways, but back here in Canada, we've been seeing the big polling trend that the Conservatives are way in the lead, 14% above the Liberals. But if you were to think about what a typical Liberal voter looks like these days, I feel like it'd be really hard to conceptualize it. While the Liberals still have that kind of 26 to 30% of the vote, it's not really what I would consider a particularly stable group of people anymore. But what I want to focus on today is talking about who I think are kind of the remaining base of the Liberal Party, keeping it on life support right now. Because I think if they slip even just a few more points in the polling, the Liberal Party's vote could just completely collapse, with a lot of people thinking that's not even worth showing up for them anymore because they just can't win an election. So, they might vote NDP, Green, Bloc, or just stay home entirely. But I'm making this video trying to kind of explain the three groups that I think are the kind of toxic groups that are keeping the Liberal Party limping along. This video is kind of made in conjunction with Chris from the Great Canadian Bagel podcast, because I was recently on one of his podcasts and we were just talking about the concept of a lot of liberal people voting liberal out as a sign of their status in society rather than out of a genuine support for liberal policies. So I'm going to be breaking this all down into three different groups using one of the charts that Chris got me from a recent Angus Reid poll to sort of illustrate the point. So out of the three groups that I think are still supporting the Liberals and keeping them on life support, the first and most obvious is obviously social activists. It's the super socially progressive activists who love the virtue signaling from Justin Trudeau. They hate traditional values, so they like voting for Justin Trudeau because he keeps social conservatives at bay. He's radically pro-abortion. He's radically pro-trans. He's radically in favor of undermining parental rights and all that stuff. That's the one that I think everyone understands, and I think those are the sort of his most visually sort of present supporters, where you don't get that many average middle class businessmen or families saying, "Oh, we just love the policies of Justin Trudeau." Obviously not. He's been really deeply hurting them. But the other two are the ones that you probably don't think of as often. The first one is subsidy voters. And when I say this, I mean people who are in business, but only in business because they get government grants. This covers people who run green energy companies. This covers nonprofits, as well as monopolistic organizations. Well, not quite monopolistic, but like very close to monopolistic organizations like Loblaws, who effectively benefit from all the bad regulations the Liberals pass because it undermines smaller scale competition and makes sure that they keep market dominance. In the case of the green energy companies, obviously a lot of these wind, solar, and EV manufacturers wouldn't really be around unless they were getting large portions of their money from the government. It's always nonsense whenever people say, well, the oil and gas industry gets more grants from the government or gets more money from the government. That's true in raw dollars, but these oil and gas companies can actually turn a profit without the government's help. The EV companies, the green energy, solar, wind companies, they can't. The thing is that they would immediately go out of business if they were not getting billions of dollars from the government every single year. It's effectively subsidizing all their losses, and they're just cutting themselves a check by just sort of like running their business in the most mediocre way possible. And then, of course, there's also the nonprofit organizations, which I'm not sure if you know this, but in the terms of the GDP of Canada, nonprofits make up 8.7%. And nonprofits aren't bad. There's a lot of great nonprofits out there. But there's also a lot of nonprofits out there where it's effectively just DEI, diversity type training, anti-hate sort of groups that get hundreds of thousands of dollars each to effectively serve nobody. They maybe go and consult the government themselves, they go work for private organizations, or they, raise awareness, and they're activists in the community, organizing the community. These people are effectively their own sort of grift industry, and they get tons of money every year to basically do nothing. And they tend to be these higher net worth voters as well, because as long as they keep their costs down, they can write themselves a pretty big salary every single year. So that's the second group. So there's the social activists, and then there's the subsidy voters. And the third is what I would call elite government officials. These are judges, there are lawyers who work for the government, advisors, ministers, other sorts of people who work for the government who make an over $200,000 salary. The Dr. Teresa Tams of the world, the people who effectively live to advise the government on terrible policy, or they work in some sort of elite position that pays extremely well, and they kind of vote for the Liberal Party to signal their status, their either the support for the sort of social views of the Liberal government, or they're effectively voting for the Liberals to and basically keep and hold on to their elite positions. This is why we have scandals in Canada of judges giving a lot of money to the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party tends to enrich a lot of these rich elite people inside the government, even though the government is usually like meant to be more of a thing that you work at that gives you some job stability. It's harder to get fired, but you don't usually get paid as much. Maybe you get a nice pension, but you're not supposed to be making as much as people in the private sector. Under Justin Trudeau, that's completely flipped. You get a fantastic pension and you get a fantastic salary, and there's no way they're ever going to fire you. So that makes up the third group of people that are like voting Liberal. And I'll pull up the chart right now that Chris gave me because this really, really hammers it home. Because although the Conservative Party is pretty much leading with every single demographic outside of those who make less than $25,000 a year, the Liberals have disproportionate support as the demographics get richer. So their support is at only around 26%, 23% with those who make between 25,000, 50,000, 50,000, 100,000. But once you get to the $200,000 plus bracket, they have 31% support. And remember that in this poll, I believe that they were only doing about 27% overall or 26%. So they disproportionately are winning these richer voters, even though the Conservative Party even though the Conservative Party tends to have actually a fairly consistent support base between the 50 and 100,000 crowd to the 200,000 crowd, with, of course, the under 25,000 being very divided up because, of course, voters who are not making a lot of money tend to be more not desperate, but they're willing to try new parties out. So a lot more of them will vote NDP, Liberal, Conservative, and Green more than any other sort of demographic in terms of the diversity of their choices. But with the Liberal Party, it has definitely become a party where the people who are voting for it are either voting because out of basically social activism, or they stand to benefit a lot financially from the government. It is a lot of the people who are being paid massive salaries in the government who the Liberals have been giving massive pay raises over the last 8 years, or it's those who work in these subsidized industries or nonprofits who wouldn't exist without the Liberal support. So I think this really is demonstrating that I think what's holding the Liberals in place right now is a combination between crazy social activists who just hate conservatives and people who need the Liberals to stick around if their businesses are going to survive. Businesses with no legitimate reason to be sticking around. Anyways, I just wanted to pull up one more chart here too, just to hammer this home, because it doesn't look like there's even that many people, according to this Abacus data poll, that even really want Justin Trudeau to stick around. So when it comes to wanting change, there's only 17% of people who actually want to re-elect a Liberal government, according to this Abacus data poll, with the vast majority of people, 84%, wanting some form of change. And I think that this is a great way of saying that there is this hardcore base of 17% who effectively do not care about corruption. They don't care about the misuse of government funds. They don't care about undermining Canadians' charter rights. They are supporters of just big government liberalism. They don't actually care if the policies work or not, because as long as the policies work for them personally, that's enough for them. And I think that you can see this reflected in Justin Trudeau's approval rating. It's been absolutely slumping hard, but like the disapproval rating's been skyrocketing. But I would say for the last year, it's kind of the approval rating has stagnated, because I think there is a floor of people who rely on Justin Trudeau to get by in life, so that they'll never quite fully turn on him. But anyways, I just wanted to make this video because I thought Chris from the Great Canadian Bagel podcast really made a great point by just showing and proving our point correct on his podcast that liberal voters are luxury voters. There's a reason why liberal voters are also disproportionately concerned about the environment, even past NDP voters, because they are voters who tend to be disproportionately wealthy and able to pay for the costs of terrible environmental policy. Even if it doesn't work, they just like the fact that they support environmental initiatives. They don't actually care if they work or not, because at the end of the day, it's all about either getting paid through your subsidized industries or your government salary, or supporting the social beliefs or the very highfalutin luxury social beliefs that you hold. Whereas the Conservative Party tends to have a very diverse base of people who care about managing their legitimate businesses, care about family values, and don't want the government prying into their lives. But anyways, that's it for me today. Hopefully this wasn't too rambly by the end, but obviously I have my donation link like I usually do in the comments, just my Give, Send, Go campaign to help raise money to fight off a Chinese billionaire trying to sue me. I've already paid $15,000 defending myself. And also you can sign up for TNT emails in the description below, just so that you can get my videos and my articles sent directly to your inbox, rather than hopefully waiting for a YouTube or Facebook or Google algorithm to show me to show you my videos, which is always annoying. That I'll put out a video and only like 20 of my subscribers will have seen it because for some reason YouTube just chooses not to show people. Anyways, that should be it for me today, and have a great day.